Welcome to the Instant Sequence Rapid Fire Trigger tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to cover how to use the Rapid Fire Trigger in the Instant Sequence dialog box. So I will first launch the Instant Sequence dialog box, and you'll notice under on this row that says Trigger, everything says normal. That's the default. I'm going to change it to Rapid Fire. And you notice as soon as I do, it changes the theme to 1 pixel. So that becomes the default for Rapid Fire, but you can change that. But for the sake of this, of demonstrating how Rapid Fire works, I'm going to use this default of 1 pixel. And then I'm also going to disable all the rows except row 1 by selecting none for the TCM here. So we're just going to use TCM1 on row 1, and let's look at the timing map, because the timing map is very important for Rapid Fire. You see in this timing map there are some rows that don't have any check marks, and row 1 doesn't have any check marks, so if we were to try to do instant sequence, nothing would happen, because there's if there's no check marks here, then there's no triggers being generated. So to put some check marks all across here, you can just say set freq spectrum, but I'm going to uncheck this. It says set theme color and movement, because with this checked, if I click on this button, it's going to set some defaults for the theme color and movement, and I don't want to change what I already have set, so I will uncheck that. I set freq spectrum, and you notice some check marks went all across here. So now, and I could have done it this way, but I want to go ahead and do low to high, and you see the 2 lowest frequencies got selected here. If we were in the normal trigger type, these would be combined and treated as 1 trigger, that every time any notes happen in either one of these, then it gets triggered. But anyway, just think of it as it treats it as 1 trigger. But with Rapid Fire, it treats it as 2 separate triggers, and so you get more triggers, and that's why I call it Rapid Fire. So let's go back here to the Instant Sequence dialog box, and I think we're ready. Oh, we got to open an audio file. I'm going to use Hallelujah Chorus. And then I'm going to say sequence all. And then you should see some effects up here, and you don't see any. Well, that's because there's no low notes at the beginning of this song. If we scroll over, we'll see some effects here. So let's play this, and we'll see what it looks like. And you notice every time one of those low notes get hit, it scoots this 1 pixel along. Now, it's not moving very fast, and that's because we only have 2 frequencies selected. If we say have 8 of them selected, we're going to get more triggers. Let's do sequence all. And you notice we have more triggers being generated. Let's play this and see what it looks like. You notice it's moving much faster, and every once in a while you get it leaves a trail. That's okay. That's just what it does. But you see, it's moving much faster. Now, to the maximum number of triggers you're going to generate is if you say all freaks. If you have this check mark checked, it's the same as having all of these checked. So if we do this, it's going to really scoot along. And see, now we have stuff being generated from the beginning of the song because it's responding to all frequencies. So let's play this. And you see it's really scooting along really fast. And what I like about Rapid Fire is that it's responsive to the whole song better. With the normal triggers, it's like it's either triggered or it's not, and the more intense parts of the song, don't necessarily produce any more effects than the less intense parts. But with rapid fire, the more intense parts of the song makes the thing scoot along more. Now you could make that change color. Right now it's white, but we could do RGBW by group, and realize that let's go ahead and do sequence all with rapid fire. See with the normal trigger, every time a trigger happens, it would rotate through red, green, blue, and white. But with rapid fire, there's so many triggers being generated that I changed how that works. If you look up here, you see a series of red ones, and then a green one, and then some blue ones. And if we scroll, we can see it changes through red, green, and blue. And the way it decides when to change is whenever there's a gap. But as long as there's a bunch of effects all close together, it keeps the same color. So let's play this, and you'll see how this looks. You see, as soon as there is a long enough gap, it changes color. And of course, you can set custom colors here. If you wanted to just change through red, orange, and yellow, you could do that. And then here you would choose custom colors 1 by group. And like I said, with rapid fire, by group and by effect are the same thing. It just goes by the gap that's between there. So if we do sequence all here, it generated the same effects. It's just that it's cycling through red, orange, and yellow. So let's play this, and you'll see there's the red. Anyway, it did orange really short. There's yellow. There's red again. There's orange. There's yellow. Anyway, so you can cycle through whatever colors you want. Now next I'm going to demonstrate that you can change how it moves. Like you can say, right now we had it set on right same row. Well, you can go up same column, and I know it's confusing, these directions on here. The right only makes sense if this was a horizontal matrix, and since it's a vertical, right ends up meaning down, and up ends up meaning going to the right. But anyway, let's try this, and what it's going to do is it's going to go across. Now that's sort of interesting. You might like that effect, but it goes across so fast that you don't even see it moving across. So what you could do is say up multi-column, and now every time it hits the end, it's going to go down a column. There, you see how it's moving down. But I'm going to show you how you can do some pretty cool things by doing this. If you just do up same column and change to another effect, one that I like is morphs separating. You get some interesting stuff here. Let's do sequence all, and we'll see how this looks. And what it's doing is it's using that effect, and it's very quickly moving it along the whole width of the display here. Now, one advantage of this is that, as some of you know, with the normal trigger, you're limited to 24 rows because in this dialog box it only has room for 24, and in the timing map it only has 24 rows across here. Well, now that you can move the effect across the rows, you're not limited by by the number of rows. So we could go change this layout to something really big, such as 48. If you had a matrix or a mega tree that had lots of ribbons in it, let's say you had 48 of them. Let's do sequence all. And now let's see what this looks like. You can see it goes across the whole width. You're not limited to 24 anymore, and it looks pretty cool. So this is a way to sequence, use infinite sequence on more than the 24 rows. Now, I don't know. It gets really active if you have all freaks. Although I mean they look cool, but I'm going to do the middle frequencies here, and it. Let's see what that looks like. We'll do play stop all. And you might prefer it not moving so fast there. And you could play around with what frequencies you want it to be responsive to. And so that's that. Now I want to go back. Okay, I also want to show how to use the VU meter setting here. We select VU meter, and then you want to go back to the 1 pixel theme, and then for VU meter you want to set it a bunch of frequencies all across the spectrum, and there's nothing, you can't use set spectrum to do this. You have to go through and manually set these. I've gone through and made it so there's 6 check marks for each of the 12 rows that I've gone back to now. You want at least 5 or 6 selected, or else rapid fire isn't going to do its thing. It only works well if you have at least 5 or 6 selected. And what we want to do is use TCM1 across every single row here. So it's going to use TCM1, which has rapid fire and 1 pixel, and I'm going to go back to using white here. Where did white go? There it is. And we'll do sequence all. And you notice now, since we have all these selected, there's some effects on all of the rows up here. Let's shrink this down so we can see all 12 of them. You can see at the beginning there's no low notes. That's why these first few rows don't have any effects in them. But if we scroll down, you see that it eventually does. So let's play this and we'll see how it looks. And it's really not a VU meter, but it sort of looks like one. And like I said, the more check marks you put on here, the more responsive it's going to be. And you can also affect how active it is by changing the sensitivity. I just changed it to 3. Let's see what it does there. You see we get less effects being generated. And so it's a little bit less active. But anyway, you can choose the sensitivity that you like here. And then another thing to show here is for the movement, this 1.0 means move it 1 pixel every trigger. So that controls, that means these 1 pixels are being moved down 1. And and then when there's a gap, they get moved back up to the beginning. That's how VU meter works. That's all it's doing, is whenever there's a gap, it moves the starting point back up to the top. And right now, there is no way to put it at the bottom. I'm sorry. I'll do that next year, but VU meter is always going to be at the top right now. But if you wanted to, you can stretch it out. If you said 2 pixels, and then you move 2.1 every trigger, it's going to each trigger is going to be twice as big, and it's going to move twice as far. So you see these lines end up being longer. And then, of course, you could make it change through different colors if you want. We can say RGBW here. But since each row is stepping through the red, green, blue, and white independently, you get sort of a randomized effect here. If you wanted them to all change color together, you would say color by time, and now every 2 seconds it's going to change the color. You see how they all change together up here. So it's going to first be red, and then change to green, and blue, and then go and white, and then it's going to go back to red. Another thing you can do with rapid fire is you can do random dots, and that's sort of interesting how that works. If we say random points here, and let's go back to just using one using him on one row. If we say sequence all, okay, yeah, again, he didn't produce anything until here. Let's play this and see what happens. And what it does is it randomly, it takes these 2 pixels, and every time there's a trigger, it just randomly places them on the thing here. And it's sort of, it's a little bit weird how it works in that, see, you could take 3 segs, or it doesn't matter what it is. It's going to take the pixels in that thing and randomly spread them out all over the place. But since this effect has more pixels in it, you get more stuff happening here. Now I think that's a little bit too intense, and so the way I would use it is, you could do the 5 pixel thing. And then, you get 5 times as many pixels being produced as if we were using 1 pixel. Now, if we went to all freaks, then that's going to generate more also. And it's going to be responsive to all of the frequencies in the song. Let's start at the beginning here. And so this is a cool thing that you can use to create like a background. You could do this and then do some effects on top of this manually. And so that's a good introduction to rapid fire, and I think that's going to do it for this. And I might say that this was rapid fire on some pixels, on a matrix of pixels. There's also another tutorial on using rapid fire on regular lights that are not pixels, and so I invite you to watch that one also. Thank you, and have a super day.